goes up, you're not, you sort of lose faith in your politician to, you depend on them to create the solutions for you so you can keep your life going the way you're used to it. That's a biosocial pressure. That's a outside pressure imposing itself upon you. When enough of this pressure builds up, it's not that we want it to. I know most people do not advocate the increase of suffering on any level. Historically, when you look at how society has changed itself over time, there's an intervening outer pressure going wide enough to the population to create that kind of motion. So how that's going to unfold, I'm not a prophet, so I couldn't say that to you, but what's likely? Well, what's likely is you're going to see increase in civil unrest. What's likely is that you're going to see that as this system plays itself out, you're going to see greater scarcity in our resources. You're going to see prices rise. You're going to see, especially in our hydrocarbon base and our transportation and production based on oil, you're going to see increased warfare, which you're seeing now. You're going to see the aberrant outcomes increase over time as the pressures get greater until enough people want to move in another direction. That's why the movement is part of the reason why the movement exists. We're trying to get this information out into the social mindset so that when the pressure is building up, people have a place to go or they have a direction they want to move in. So your question is very, it's not easy to answer, if that makes sense.
I was just adding, in case we're overcomplicating your question, if everyone agreed to move into the system like this, it could be done virtually overnight. Because it's just a matter, if we applied everything we knew right now, the majority of the things could be conquered. It would take time to implement them, obviously, but that's a matter of degree. But the know-how that we have has been around for a long, long time, to effectively engage and apply.
I often get asked what the transition's going to look like, and to that person I usually say, well, how would you describe the time that we're in? We're transitioning to something. This is it. So this is what it looks like, and there's so many variables to put a strategy together as soon as, it would kind of be, I don't know, it would be challenging because you don't know what you have to work with, and you don't know the future events. You don't know what resources you will have yet. We would need to take an inventory first. We don't know if there are going to be wars going on, if there's going to be natural disasters on the planet. So that's why when people say, where's your plan? Give me your, like a business plan, they want us to hand them a book or something like, let me review this transition plan. It doesn't exist except in the reality that we're in, and trying to engage people with these ideas so that they will first desire it. We have to want it. This is something that it's not going to happen by force. It needs to be through desire. Unfortunately, it may come through suffering first, that people desire something different because there's been a disillusionment of the system being fixed, the current system that we're in. But I definitely feel like we're in the transition, and that we have a unique opportunity to try to impress upon people the importance of getting started with something like this.
Is there any talk among you or other people about like the first city that we're going to try and to provide an example for people to show them that it can work?
Well, that's been talked about for a long time. I think it's less, if you think about it, is it really about the city, or is it really about the applications of technology in certain sectors? Like I would rather than a city, I'd rather see, as I alluded to earlier, vertical farms being set up along the coast of, say, some local city that's already existing and producing free food. So you start with the free food production. Basically, they call that socialism. If you put anything for free, it's socialism. But it's transitional. See, the problem with socialism in a market economy is that it takes away from market share and hence reduces economic growth. That's the clash, though. That's why it's fought so much. That's why in America, all that thing they tried to do with the healthcare industry backfired so violently, is because it's hurting the economy, even though it's completely inhumane the way they organize things. So if you were to take an approach of applying technology to certain areas of human need and getting that going, that would be an amazing first step. But knowing that you can automate a city and creating a city, that might be applicable too, but I think it'd be better to show how in a pocket that actually has a tangible return, not just say a test city that isn't accessible, you apply technology for certain services and you get that out there. And then slowly everything else becomes more and more socialized, if you will, using technology. And then a tipping point occurs where the market system falls and it's completely replaced by a free economy because everything has reached that point. And the value systems have shifted enough where people are willing to engage the system knowing it's for their betterment and the future of their species rather than wanting that incentive of money. So I hope that makes sense.
Hi, my name is Richard Benazuz. I'm here, I represent the Arab Spring, the revolution that is taking place. Okay, thank you. And it is a pleasure to meet you guys who are in charge of this process. What I call this is the collective consciousness. This is called the golden time. We are not here by accident. We all had to come here because it is distant. So what is taking place here, it is also distant. Okay. Now here is one thing that I have for you. These movements, these consciousness level that all came together, cooked up one explosion economically, politically, consciously, it's an uplift for humanity. It is up to us all to work it. All of us are involved in this. There is no such thing as a race. There is no such thing as a cultural difference. All there is humanity grouped in this globe that we are caught in. So I came here offering my thanks for your efforts. And I think because of your efforts, collective efforts, that we are having a revolution in my country.
Greece.
Morocco.
Oh, can you talk into the mic so they can hear you?
Yeah, I've been told to speak in there. Okay, my question here. Oh, that's even better. Yeah. My question here is, what are we willing to do to help people that are under totalitarian dictatorships that have been supported by special interests here in the States as well as in Europe? What I mean by special interests, I mean by the industrialists, by the food corporate, the three giant food corporate. What are we as people willing to do for them before they turn into the so-called fanaticism? Because that will be their last hope if we don't help. Because I've been engaging them, and if they don't say no help, you will go into the dark ages behavior. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. What I would say off the bat is that the dictatorships that are supported by industrial interests are one of the worst symptoms of the economic system that we support, because as I think many know that have studied the work, say, of John Perkins and these dictators that are supported by what we call the corporatocracy, it was a term that he coined, where corporations and governments basically merge and they have different influences, and they want to keep people in power that serve certain commercial interests, such as Saddam Hussein used to be very, very easy to get along with the United States, giving petroleum to us, and then he began to do rogue things and we had to remove him, such as Hugo Chavez, who was recently couped in 2003 by the states and corporate interests, who survived it, fortunately, but he's not agreeing with especially hydrocarbons, but the economic interests of the West. But that is a manifestation of this system. So what are we doing to help them in the short term? That's a big question. The best thing I can recommend is go to the root of the problem that we've talked about, and let's work as fast as possible to get rid of it. Because even if we were to help certain regions in certain ways, it's only going to occur somewhere else. It's only going the same exploitation and abuse and the remaining of abusive governments, so they benefit Western interests, which is basically what you're talking about. It's going to continue. So, I mean, if anyone has anything else to suggest in the short term, it's a very complicated question, you know, but we have to get rid of the system.
Yeah.
I just wanted to acknowledge you and say that I understand. I mean, obviously, in a lot of Middle Eastern countries and just a lot of repressive countries, it's a different situation. Reading the Declaration of Solidarity from Cairo, they appreciated the nonviolence of what's going on here, but said that their situation is different, and people do need to resist and not initiate violence, but if they didn't, then they'd be in jail or dead. So it's different in different places around the world, but as Peter and everyone's been talking about, the education underneath it is so important, but we can't claim to understand how unique it is in each country, obviously, dealing with that kind of repression.
All we ask of you is to recognize a criminal. That's all we recognize. You do not shove bottles up people's anuses and still be considered a bona fide in Washington. You do not put people underground for 20 years and you still well received in Washington. You do not rape the whole country and take its resources and put billions here and still be recognized as a dignitary. It should be known and declared as a criminal. That is all what we're asking from you. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
I think everyone shares that. I mean, obviously, there are extremes that have to be taken down, if you will, as fast as possible in the immediate sense. But again, it all underscores a certain logic. The people that are so abused, as you speak of, are usually in the way of something, and that usually has to do with commerce. Usually has to do with something regarding resources or the movement of those resources. That's why the movement is as broad as it is, but anything that we can come up to help with, we certainly will in the meantime. But I hope I do recognize the issue that we brought up. Thank you.
Hello, hi guys. My name is Luis Hernandez. So basically just kind of taking off from what we were just talking, I want to get your thoughts on how important is this American awakening that's going on in order to move forward to this change of values and change of consciousness that we need. Just your thoughts on how important it is.
I see it as being massive, which I think most would agree.
America, for one.
Before I pass the mic, I'll say that like about a year and a half ago, we'd sit around and say, God, it's going to take like generations for anyone to really kind of begin to recognize the problem, or at least on the surface, and then the world to come together. It's going to take too long, and then boom, in a very rapid manner, whether it's absolutely targeted towards the root problem or not, it isn't, but it could be. We have this massive global movement against the financial system, which they don't quite know what they're protesting yet as far as I'm concerned, but hopefully they will. But it's amazing, and it's beautiful, and it's the beginning of really this main awareness of what is the economy, what's driving us, why are there abuses, why all the imbalance and everything else. So I think it's profound and could be the beginning of everything that we've been talking about.
I was just going to reiterate that it is definitely beyond the U.S., and I think that the U.S. may actually be later to adopt because there are greater needs with people feeling the crunch in a much more dramatic way in other countries right now. And I think we're kind of used to being pampered, and maybe we'll react quickly once that finally... we didn't have to get that bad before you had people occupying Wall Street. That's one thing that should be noted. You're not looking at people that... you're not looking at desolate, malnourished people. You're looking at what was, Exactly, but I'm saying when you look at the Occupy movement and who comprises it, a lot of people would have expected it to be only the people who are, who haven't had jobs for a really long time. And there are some people who are just coming into a realization because something impacted them in the last couple of months, and they're ready for a change. They're ready for a revolution, and it didn't take them long to realize, wait a minute, something's up. I'm not going to have the same lifestyle I used to have. So I will say that about Americans is that we've been slower to talk about these ideas, but I think we're going to be quicker to realize, wait a minute, this is unacceptable because we've been so pampered. So I have that hope for us.
Hi, my name is Bilal. I am an artist and a futurist. My question is for the panel and for everyone here, including everybody watching worldwide. Just the same way that the MP3 technology or the digital formats took away cassettes and other businesses and collapsed them, I'm aware that in 1927, Nikola Tesla put up the Wardenclyffe Towers, and he did that to harness energy from the ionosphere. So I really appreciate what Mr. Jacques Fresco and Mr. Peter Joseph has suggested to us, but to find a solution for all that we want to see possible, we need to have access to free energy. And I don't understand why, as a human race, we can have our individual grievances, but we don't go and ask for something that can resolve all our issues, and that is to have access to free energy, so we can free our minds to be who we want to be. And all of these things I can only see as a possibility if we have access to free energy.
That's interesting. I see your logic. I think even beyond Tesla and a lot of other great thinkers that have been utilizing very, very unconventional, if you will, means to generate energy, the resources that we have now with geothermal, the engineering capabilities we have now with geothermal and the potentials of geothermal and solar and wind and very simple structural things that can be done like pressure transducers and things like that actually would already enable almost an infinite, at least as far as humans in their lifespan are concerned, an infinite amount of energy. And those are actually semi-conventional. They're just not harnessed, and there's no focus. And I think I shouldn't have to explain to you that if we bring in free energy, so to speak, it's never really free. Even the sun will burn out in 4 billion years, but that's a pretty long time. Sure. Well, hold on, let me finish my point, though, is that the market system can't have that. If you think about how much GDP is generated across the world from petroleum or any kind of energy, really, the ability to use automation to produce the technology, to apply it and generate whatever the source, energy that can be available to all without cost, would collapse the entire world economy. That's how severe the energy GDP relationship is. That's how much of an expense. Well, for us, that would be beautiful. I'm talking about the market system. As I complained about earlier, the system is anathema to that. It can't have that type of efficiency. It won't work. So I plant that seed. That's why we're hindered. We could have had virtually free energy many years ago if we wanted. The same with Nikola Tesla's period. You know, he knew that.
But shouldn't we, as a movement or as a race, shouldn't we be like I listen to all the Occupy movement, and they keep talking about individual concerns, and I'm like, why as a race don't we go and ask for that? If there is an availability and an awareness, if we can educate people on it, then they would, like as you mentioned, if they know that there is something that can benefit them. And I personally see that the monetary system will collapse faster than anything, just the same way I mentioned when digital came, all the other formats, and I mean, you look at books, they're digitalized now, there's no paper waste. It's because something was introduced and there was no contesting or there was no protest except for the people that were making it, because it collapsed and people easily adjusted to the new system. I think that if we have access to the free energy, first of all, we have to demand it because it's not going to be given to us because it has existed for a very long time, but it's just been hidden from us. So once we have that, all this monetary system will collapse in itself.
From what I hear you saying, absolutely agree with you. And one of the things you're talking about is awareness. Enough people asking for this, enough people wanting to go in this direction. I think part of the reason what happens, people will charge in and they get angry and they want to protest or they want to revolt. not knowing what direction to go into leaves you very susceptible to the will of the crowd, if you will. Part of the reason the movement is doing what it's doing, which is just volunteers advocating information that we didn't come up with. We're referencing data sets that methodology, scientific method, for example, a systems approach that I touched on earlier. We're referencing a data set that is a logical ground-up approach to life ground. The word I kept hearing when you were talking about energy is life ground needs. Life ground needs are the basic unifying human needs of nutrition, air, oxygen, air, water, shelter, social interaction, stuff like that. Energy, of course. So without enough people knowing about it and without enough awareness of any project, and people approach me all the time about, well, why don't we just do this? Why don't we just do that? Every single why don't we just is usually followed by something that requires global mass awareness. And it's just like, there's another movement, there's another movement, there's another movement. We're going right to what we can identify the root cause of the issue, which is the social system that we've designed, well, that we didn't design it, that we live inside of, and understanding its design and the negative retroactions that it has on us as in everybody, all the people in the world who suffer from poverty. They're hungry in the world. They're not hungry because they don't have enough. There's not enough food. They're hungry because they suffer a condition called poverty. Okay, so now you're looking at something that is not a technical. It's technically possible, but it's still not done. If it's technically possible and it's still not done, now you're looking at a value problem. You're looking at a value issue. That is an educational problem. And we do have a time limit. There is a certain amount of time that we can, fuck around before we run out of clean water, before we have too much erosion of our arable land. We have too much depletion of our vital resources that makes all of this work. So that's my motivation, to try and communicate this information to as many people as possible. And I think that's the direction you're going. When I hear what you're saying, that's the direction I hear that needs to be taken, and it's happening right now. So,
and I would just add one more thing to that, because it's the same train of thought, is the ability to produce food without cost. We already have massive agricultural automation systems. The farmer's market, I went to a farmer's market recently, and I was blown away. It was so hideously cheap. It was like $2 for 10 pounds of tomatoes and like